The desperate signal. The dying world. On the distant planet Kepler 442b, the morning sky blazed with 3 different colored suns, but colony administrator Vex Thalan could find no beauty in the sight. The Zephyrian settlement that had once thrived here was now a shadow of its former self. Streets that once bustled with activity lay eerily quiet, broken only by the soft hum of medical transport vehicles rushing between buildings. Vex pressed his 6-fingered hand against the cool glass of his office window, watching another transport speed past. Inside, he knew, lay another victim of the plague that had swept through their world like wildfire. In just 3 months, the mysterious disease had claimed nearly half of their population. Their best scientists were baffled, their medical facilities overwhelmed, and their hope fading with each passing day. The plague attacked the nervous system in ways their doctors had never seen before. Victims would first lose their ability to speak, then their motor functions would slowly shut down until they fell into a deep, unbreakable sleep. No medicine worked, no treatment showed promise, and no pattern emerged that might help them understand how to stop it. The Galactic Vex turned away from the window and walked to his communication console. His blue-scaled face reflected the urgency he felt as he activated the long-range transmitter. This was their last hope, a desperate call to any civilization in the galaxy that might have the knowledge or resources to help them. "This is Colony Administrator Vex Thalan of the Zephyrian settlement on Kepler 442b, he began, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. "We are facing extinction from an unknown plague. Our population is dying, and we have exhausted all known medical interventions. We humbly request assistance from any species with advanced medical knowledge. We offer our entire planetary resources in exchange for help. Please, if anyone can hear this message, we are running out of time." The message was transmitted across multiple frequencies, designed to reach every corner of the galaxy. Vex had sent similar pleas before, but this time he included detailed scans of the plague's effects, hoping that somewhere in the vast expanse of space, someone would recognize what they were dealing with. The Silent Galaxy. The first response came from the Altarian Medical Collective, known throughout the galaxy for their healing expertise. Their reply was cold and clinical. "Analysis complete. Plague shows signs of artificial enhancement. Treatment would require resources we cannot spare. Regret inability to assist." Next came the Corvian Republic, whose bioscientists were legendary. "Reviewed your data. Plague appears designed to target specific neural pathways. Recommend quarantine protocols. Direct intervention not possible at this time." One by one, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations responded with variations of the same message. They could analyze the plague, they could identify its artificial nature, but none would commit resources to actually helping. Some were honest about their limitations, others made excuses about conflicting priorities, but the result was always the same. The Zephyrians would face extinction alone. Vex slumped in his chair as the final rejection came through. The Hegemony Council itself, the governing body that maintained order across the galaxy, had responded, "Unfortunate situation noted. Natural selection processes must be allowed to proceed. Intervention would disrupt galactic balance. Colony advised to accept inevitable outcome with dignity." The mysterious response. Just as Vex was about to shut down the transmitter, a new signal appeared on his console. The source was listed as Unknown Sector 7 Alpha. He had never heard of any civilization in that region. According to galactic charts, Sector 7 Alpha was considered dead space, too far from trade routes and too resource poor to support advanced life. The message was brief, but electrifying. Message received. Medical assistance en route. Estimated arrival 72 standard hours. Prepare detailed patient records. We will find a solution. Vex stared at the screen in disbelief. Who were these beings that lived beyond the mapped sectors? What kind of technology did they possess that made them confident they could succeed where the galaxy's greatest minds had failed? And most importantly, were they truly coming to help? Or was this some cruel joke in their darkest hour? Earth's discovery. Meanwhile, In a remote monitoring station orbiting Earth's moon, communications specialist Dr. James Rodriguez was finishing his night shift when an unusual signal caught his attention. The Deep Space Listening Array had picked up multiple transmissions from a distant star system. First, a desperate plea for help, then several responses from unknown alien civilizations. James had been monitoring space communications for 15 years, part of humanity's secret effort to learn about the galaxy beyond their solar system. They knew other species existed, but Earth had been carefully avoiding contact, waiting until they better understood the galactic political situation. "This is incredible," James muttered to himself as he translated the alien languages using Earth's advanced linguistic algorithms. "There's an entire galactic community out there, and they're just going to let an entire species die?" He quickly compiled the data and sent it up the chain of command. Within hours, the information reached the highest levels of Earth's government and military. The response was swift and unanimous. Humanity would not stand by and watch genocide unfold even if the victims were aliens they had never met. The human decision captain Sarah Chen stood in the briefing room aboard the UES Endeavour, Earth's most advanced deep space vessel. Around her sat the finest minds humanity could assemble: doctors, scientists, engineers, and military strategists. They had been given an impossible mission: travel to a distant alien world and save a dying species that Earth had never encountered before. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," said Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the mission's chief medical officer. "We're heading into unknown space to treat a plague that has stumped the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, and we have no idea what we're walking into?" Captain Chen nodded. "That's correct. But we also know that sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what's needed. These alien doctors are all working within their established medical paradigms. We might see solutions they've overlooked." "And if we fail?" asked Commander Marcus Torres, the mission's military leader. "Then we fail trying to save lives instead of sitting safely at home while others die," Chen replied firmly. "That's what makes us human. We help even when it's dangerous, even when it's impossible, even when no one else will." The room fell silent as her words sank in. These people had volunteered for humanity's first major interstellar rescue mission, knowing they might never return home, but they also knew they couldn't live with themselves if they didn't try. The fleet departs 3 days later. A small fleet of human ships departed from Earth's hidden deep space facility. The Endeavour led the way, followed by 2 medical frigates, loaded with Earth's most advanced equipment and a team of brilliant specialists. They had studied every piece of data about the plague, analyzed the failed attempts of other species, and developed several experimental approaches that might work. The journey to Kepler 442b would take them through uncharted space, past the boundaries of known galactic civilization. They were venturing into the dark between the stars, guided only by the desperate signal of a dying world and their unwavering belief that every life was worth saving. As Earth disappeared behind them, Captain Chen stood on the bridge watching the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, an entire species was counting down their final hours. They didn't know that help was coming, didn't know that a young species from a small blue world had heard their call and refused to ignore it. "ETA to Kepler 442b is 18 hours, Captain," reported Lieutenant Hayes from the navigation station. "Thank you, Lieutenant. All stations, prepare for what might be the most important mission humanity has ever undertaken. We're not just trying to save the Zephyrians. We're announcing to the galaxy who we are and what we stand for." The human fleet raced through the cosmic darkness, carrying with them something the galaxy had forgotten existed: hope that transcended species, compassion that crossed the void, and the stubborn human refusal to accept that some problems simply couldn't be solved. Soon they would discover that their arrival would change more than just the fate of one dying world. It would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization itself. The revelation that changed everything. Arrival at the dying world, the human. Fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Kepler 442b, just as the planet's 3 suns were setting, painting the atmosphere in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, watching the beautiful world below that was quietly dying from within. "Scanning the surface now, Captain," reported Lieutenant Hayes. "Population centers show minimal activity. Detecting massive medical facilities, but life signs are concerning." "How concerning?" Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Population appears to be down to approximately 40% of normal levels based on infrastructure analysis, and it's dropping." Before Chen could respond, her communications officer looked up from his console. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's in perfect English." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge was deep and tinged with exhaustion, but unmistakably relieved. "Unknown vessels. This is Colony Administrator Vex Thalen. We have been expecting you. Your arrival timing suggests you are the ones who responded to our distress call. Please identify yourselves." "Administrator Thalen, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Endeavor. We received your distress signal and have come to provide medical assistance. Request permission to land medical teams and begin immediate assessment of the situation." There was a long pause before Vex responded, and when he did, his voice carried a mixture of hope and disbelief. "Earth? We have no record of any civilization from that system. But you are welcome here, Captain Chen. We will transmit landing coordinates immediately. And Captain, thank you for coming when no one else would." The human approach within hours. Human medical teams had established field hospitals throughout the Zephyrian colony. Dr. Elizabeth Warren led the medical response, working alongside Zephyrian doctors who watched in amazement as the humans approached. The plague with methods none of them had considered. The other species focused on treating the symptoms, Dr. Warren explained to her Zephyrian counterpart, Dr. Kess Nalen, as they examined plague victims together. They saw the neural shutdown and tried to prevent it. But look at these brain scans. The plague isn't attacking the nervous system randomly. It's following specific pathways. Dr. Nalen's large compound eyes studied the human medical displays. "We observed this pattern, but could not determine its significance." "That's because you were thinking like doctors trying to cure a disease," Warren replied. "But this isn't a natural disease, it's an engineered weapon. And weapons have purposes. This plague is designed to incapacitate, not kill outright. It wants to keep the victims alive but helpless." The breakthrough came when human engineers working alongside the medical team noticed something peculiar about the plague's genetic structure. It contained dormant code sequences that would activate under specific conditions that could be artificially triggered. "It's like a computer virus," explained Chief Engineer Maria Santos to the assembled medical team. "The plague has a backdoor built into it. Someone wanted to be able to turn it off whenever they chose. But who would create such a thing?" asked Dr. Nalen, horrified by the implications. The answer came sooner than anyone expected. The Watchers revealed themselves as human doctors began successfully treating plague victims using techniques that exploited the engineered backdoor. Massive ships appeared in orbit around Kepler 442b. They were sleek, imposing vessels that dwarfed even the largest Zephyrian craft, and they belonged to the Hegemony Council. Captain Chen was in the middle of coordinating the medical response when her communications officer announced the arrival. "Captain, we're being hailed by the lead council ship. They're demanding immediate conference with our commanding officer." "On screen," Chen ordered. The figure that appeared was tall, elegant, and coldly beautiful. Counselor Varek of the Hegemony represented one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species. His silver skin gleamed under the ship's lights, and his violet eyes held an authority that had commanded respect across the galaxy for millennia. "I am Counselor Varek of the Hegemony Council. You will identify yourselves and explain your presence in this system immediately." "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of Earth. We're here providing medical assistance to the Zephyrian colony at their request." Varek's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Earth is not a recognized member of the Galactic community. You have no authority to interfere in Council operations." "Council operations?" Chen's voice was dangerously quiet. Are you saying the Council is responsible for this plague? The Zephyrian colony was selected for a controlled evolutionary pressure test, Varek replied with clinical detachment. The plague was designed to eliminate the weak and allow the strong to adapt. Your interference has contaminated the results. The bridge fell silent as the full horror of the situation became clear. The plague wasn't a natural disaster or even an attack by enemies. It was a deliberate experiment conducted by the galaxy's ruling body. The human response. Captain Chen's voice was steady, but everyone on the bridge could hear the anger burning beneath the surface. Counselor Varek, are you telling me that your government deliberately infected an entire civilian population with a deadly plague as some kind of experiment? The Hegemony Council maintains galactic stability through careful management of species development, Varek replied coldly. Some species prove worthy of advancement, others do not. The Zephyrians were being evaluated for potential council membership. The test would have determined their fitness to join galactic civilization. By murdering half their population? Dr. Warren's voice crackled over the comm from the surface, where she had been listening to the exchange. By allowing natural selection to operate efficiently, Varek corrected. Your species lacks the wisdom to understand such necessity. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences of interfering with council authority. Chen looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. She saw the same mixture of horror and determination reflected in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of humanity's first official statement to galactic civilization. Counselor Varek, on behalf of the human race, I formally reject the authority of any government that conducts genocide as policy. We will not withdraw. We will continue treating the victims of your experiment, and we will ensure that every being in this galaxy knows exactly what the Hegemony Council considers acceptable behavior. The galaxy awakens. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy changed forever. Captain Chen ordered her communications officer to broadcast their conversation on every frequency, ensuring that every species in the galaxy heard. The exchange between humanity and the Council. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across dozens of star systems, populations that had lived under Council authority for millennia heard a young species dare to challenge the established order. More importantly, they heard the Council admit to conducting genocidal experiments on civilian populations. On the Altarian homeworld, the medical collective's leadership watched the broadcast in stunned silence. They had refused to help the Zephyrians not because they couldn't, but because they had suspected Council involvement and feared retaliation. In the Corvian Republic, bioscientists who had identified the plague's artificial nature but remained silent began speaking out, admitting they had recognized the Council's hand in the Zephyrian crisis but had been too frightened to act. Even among the Council's own member species, populations began demanding answers. How many other evolutionary pressure tests had been conducted? How many species had been eliminated not by natural forces but by deliberate Council action? The new alliance's human medical teams successfully treated the plague victims using their understanding of the engineered backdoors. Something unprecedented began happening across the galaxy. Species that had never cooperated before started reaching out to each other, sharing information about suspicious disasters and unexplained population collapses that now took on sinister new meanings. The Zephyrians, saved from extinction by human intervention, became the first to officially request Earth's protection from Council retaliation. Administrator Vex Thalon stood beside Captain Chen as they addressed the galaxy together. The humans came when no one else would, Vex declared. They succeeded where advanced civilizations failed, not because of superior technology, but because they refused to accept that some lives weren't worth saving. Today, we formally request alliance with Earth and any other species willing to stand against the Council's tyranny. The response was immediate. The Kelton Mining Consortium, tired of Council-imposed quotas that kept their people in poverty, declared their support. The Meridian Research Collective, whose scientific discoveries had been suppressed by Council censorship, joined the growing alliance. Even former Council loyalists began defecting as the truth spread. The Council's response counselor Varek watched the galaxy slip from Council control with growing alarm. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hegemony faced organized resistance. Worse, It was being led by a species they had never heard of, whose very existence challenged everything the Council believed about galactic order. The humans must be eliminated, he declared to the emergency council session. They represent chaos, unpredictability. Their influence will destroy the stability we have maintained for millennia. But as council forces mobilized for war, they discovered something troubling. The humans weren't alone anymore. Dozens of species had rallied to their cause, forming a coalition united not by conquest or greed, but by the radical idea that every sapient life had value. The new dawn 6 months after the first human ship arrived, at Kepler 442b, the galaxy was transformed. The Council still controlled many systems, but their authority was no longer absolute. The human-led coalition of free worlds had become a legitimate power, offering protection to any species willing to reject Council rule. Captain Chen stood in the newly constructed coalition headquarters on Kepler 442b, looking out at a bustling city that had been dying just months before. Zephyrian children played in the streets again, their laughter a testament to the power of refusing to accept the unacceptable. "Captain," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Administrator Vex Thallon approaching, his blue-scaled face showing an expression she had learned was the Zephyrian equivalent of a smile. "The morning council broadcasts are calling us terrorists and rebels," he reported. "They claim we're destroying galactic order and bringing chaos to civilized space." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "And what do our broadcasts say?" "That sometimes the galaxy needs a little chaos to remember what civilization really means," Vex replied. "That helping others isn't weakness, it's strength. And that the best response to a call for help isn't silence, it's action." As the twin suns of Kepler 442b rose over the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Chen reflected on how far they had all come. Humanity had answered a desperate call from strangers, expecting to save one dying world. Instead, they had awakened something far more powerful, the galaxy's conscience. The age of the Hegemony Council was ending, and a new era was beginning. An era where help came to those who needed it, where strength was measured by the lives saved rather than the lives taken, and where the response to suffering was not cold calculation, but simple human compassion extended across the stars. The Immerse galaxy would never be the same again, and that was exactly as it should be.